Well, I'm not sure. I don't know if we're actually live on Facebook. I didn't hear my intro music, but something I got to learn. This is Jeff, and I haven't done this kind of stuff for a while now. And I decided to get back into it, kind of motivate myself to get back involved in doing things that I love to do with people. And so tonight, we're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about a person that I met a few days ago. It's a very interesting conversation. Her name is Ruth Nabiddo. She's from Uganda. She's been in the United States for about 7 years, and there's a the focus behind the show is to kind of share her perspective growing up in Uganda, Africa, and also what it was like for her when she came to the United States. So, without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and bring in Ruth Nabiddo. Hi, Ruth. How are you?
I'm fine, Jeff. How are you doing?
I'm
Thanks for
very
having
good.
me.
I am so glad that you agreed to do this. You're kind of helping me jumpstart something that I used to do on a regular basis.
Oh, wow.
And I'm learning this technology, StreamYard. I don't know it very well, but hopefully we're live, and hopefully everything that I think is working is working. Anyway, Ruth, thank you for taking time to do this with me. Now,
Yeah.
because nobody knows you at all in my circle of influence, why don't we start by asking you a little bit about yourself and tell us about your when you came to the United States, and just give us a little bit of information about the last 7 years of your life, and then I'd like to ask you about what it was like growing up in Uganda.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jeff. Well, my name is Ruth Nabiddo, and just a fun part of my name, Nabiddo, Bido means vegetation, anything green, forest, flowers, is just a random healthy name. So, yes, I came to this country in 2017, and of course, many people when they come to the United States, coming from Africa, they come for a lot of reasons. So there is a lot of conflict. Of course, everyone knows that there is a lot of regime, bad regime, of course, bad politics, environment. So many reasons. Africa is still struggling. That's the fact. But a lot of people also come from families that are first class families. They come here for school, not necessarily fleeing or running away or whatever. So, but mine is mostly like human rights based. Okay. So I'm a mother. I have a will be 7 in a week. Yeah, old daughter, beautiful baby. So when I came here, I worked so many jobs, any job you can think of, until I was introduced to a financial services business opportunity. Now, since 2019 to this date, I'm still a financial educator. I'm loving it. I've learned so much. And um, yeah, I have met so many people from all different walks of lives, from the Asia, Latino, Black, everything, name it. I have experienced, and I came by myself, no
Um,
family.
let's put the brakes on there for just a
Yes.
moment.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you decided I'm going to go to America, and you just hopped on a plane and went to America. Tell me how that all happened. Give me the short version.
Yeah. So when I grew up, where I grew up from, I acquired a lot of survival skills. So it is not scary at all to go in a foreign land by yourself. So I'm a survivor, if I may tell you. I grew up in a community, in a farm. Like here, when you mention on a farm, it's more like described. It has a name. It's like it has boundaries and protection, whatever it has. But in our farm meant my father had a huge chunk of land, and we grew our crops. We kept our own animals. So I grew up in such an environment. We draw water from the stream, natural stream flowing down our property. We had our own water source. So I acquired a lot of survival skills. And when I moved to the city, so moving to a new place is not something scary as you think. And coming to America, where you can call 911 in 20 minutes will come there and help you. So much easier.
Well,
So it's
before we went live, and I'm going to ask you to talk about your upbringing, but you said
yes,
some interesting things. You said our community was really our 911, and
yes,
you grew up with that kind of cultural understanding. Uh, like you said, you grew up with family and extended family, and that's
yes.
kind of how it was on the property. Now the property's divided up to the sons, and then I mean, how does that all work in your world? What happened?
Well, if a father, a man plays a huge role on what happens to his land when he's gone or while he's still living. So in my case, my father, when you get older, you're supposed to go and fend for yourself. But other families, I saw them cutting a huge chunk of land for their sons. That's what fathers did. If a son wanted to remain, in order to remain in the same community. But in my father's case, he was so much interested in big brothers to go out in the city and make it happen and change and be different, not just repeat. So in only my father said, like, only when I'm gone, that's when you get a hold of my properties. Okay. So but still, many years ago, you find that it's my father, like my, you would call him my uncle, my father's brother, lives just the next house is my father, is my uncle, my auntie, my grandma, my maternal. My mom was married from just the neighboring community. So you might find your uncles, your cousins, your nieces, we are all in the same community. Like, we know each other, relations. And then even if you're not blood related, at least your godmother, your godfather. So we know each other from miles and miles, east, west, right, center. And everyone was responsible for each other's security or whatever happens.
So you mentioned too that if you needed a basket of mangoes or something, you just ran up the hill and got them because you grew everything. So
Yes,
I mean, that's not so different than farming here. But you said something interesting. You said we never thought of ourselves as poor. We just didn't have all the electronics and digital stuff.
yes.
We had the land. You lived off the land. Now, how is that different? How different since you've been here in America? And I mean, you're not a teenager. You have a 7-year-old child, but
Yeah.
how different was America when you got here? What was it like?
When I got here and then started comparing with where I grew up from, I started being like, oh, I was poor. I grew up poor. Look at all these built roads. Look at when it rains, the roads don't get muddy and you're stuck. You don't know where to go. You wait until it dries up. Oh, look, they have a refrigerator. You have the water in your house. You have your bathroom. You go in your house, you just go off your bed and go to bathroom. I thought all of these things are like poor, like we are poor, this is rich. But again, as I stay longer in America, I realized that was abundant. I grew up with abundance. Like, I never had a limit on food, or like, you never ever have to ask anybody if they will come over for lunch. You just cook plenty of food. Like in our household, everyone can come anytime they want and they'll just go to eat. So eating, having food, whatever narrative that is out there that Africa is hungry, it's partly true, but in some parts of the country where there was a civil war for many years, and that part of the country is dry, is literally dry, nothing can grow back in that soil. But like 70 to 80% of Uganda's soil is fertile. Anything you grow there can grow back. So we grew our food. We had our own cows. We had our own milk supply. I grew up with all the nutrition in the world that I needed. I grew up healthy, and we survived on herbs. We never go sick, because even my mom, I think, knew, or my dad, like, okay, our healthcare is still struggling. The main hospital is away from us. So They kept us healthy with herbs and good food. I don't remember being sick, like seriously. We went to be immunized, we got those vaccines. And not every African that comes here is like me. So many people came from first class families. Their sons and daughters of ministers and presidents came here for, they still receive dollars from home. They still live, they don't work for years and they live in fancy apartments. So not everyone that comes from Africa is poor or is the same story as mine. But I'm giving you my own story. My
Yes.
mom, yeah, my mom kept us on herbs. If you hear a slight, I know how to treat myself with herbs. I can go into any woods and come back with a bunch of herbs and treat myself.
I'm a big person. I really appreciate that because even the herbs, and I believe that if it grows out of the ground, it's probably good for you.
Yes,
I do appreciate that. But now, one of the things that I kind of wanted to talk about with you is I wrote a book called Uncolored Race.
yes.
And that book is 12 years old now, but I wrote that book because all my life I've never seen myself as a as a as a person defined by the color of my skin. I have
Oh,
never felt that way my whole life.
yes,
So as I wrote that book, I was trying to say to people, I'm part of the human race
yes,
before I'm part of the black race, or
yes.
before I'm part of the white race, or in America we call ourselves African Americans. And I
Mhm.
struggle with that term because virtually every African person that I've spoken to, and it's kind of the motivation behind why I wanted to do this show, I've asked that question. I asked you that question. What do you
Yes,
think of the term African American? And so I've asked that question, and I've gotten the same response across the board. Now, without making it a negative thing, it's the reason why I did that was because, and I had an African brother from Kenya who I hope to interview. He said to me, Mr. Moten, he says, I didn't know I was black until I came to America.
okay.
And you act you what would you say to that? I mean, do you agree with his response?
So for me, in that response, what I thought in before nobody talked to me, spoke to me about African American outright, I was so excited to identify as African American because it was so cool how they dress. They are free to wear the women. They are free to wear their skimpy dresses, show more skin, and I was not allowed to because my mom, if you dress a certain way, they will call you whatever names like city. So identifying as an African American is so cool to people who move here. Like 99% of Africans would love to be called African Americans without going in depth of what it means or what. But for to me, I I thought the people who are called African Americans are many generations Americans who are maybe descended from like slavery. They don't have any more connection to Africa or families there. So until I was calling myself African American, me, I'm African American, and some lady was offended by it. No, you're African. They told me you're African, you're not African American. I'm like, oh, this belongs to some people. It's something like dear. So you do not have any history. You do like I have to earn it to be called African American. So earn it like okay, African American. What does it mean? So I am African. I'm not African American. I came. Yeah, so that's how I started introducing myself as Africa. I moved from Africa. So African American. Those topics are so sensitive, and because when you discuss these things, people have their history. They are very sensitive to body language, to facial expression, to the choice of words you use to address. So it is so easy to offend.
Are we talking about the American people?
Yeah,
Okay. Okay,
I
so
really
so it's not that way in where you grew up. You didn't have those kind of issues.
No, I did not see that much of sensitivity to words, to facial expressions, to comments like it is here in America. I almost go mute, like I'm so afraid to speak because you never know who you will offend. And then back home, they would outright say, "Hey, my mom used to tell me, talk about my nose, like, oh, the older you grow, your nose is becoming bigger and bigger, and then it's an offense. Or you're fat, or you." They would just say things to you, and you deal with them. So I've seen here people hating on their parents because of those comments. I'm not saying they are the best things to do. They are bad. They are traumatizing, or they make people feel a certain type of way. But I feel like I have a thicker skin to words, statements, comments, as opposed to the actual typical, like the actual African American.
You
When it,
mentioned you mentioned to me when we were talking the day I met you, or I think it was the day, I can't remember. Everything gets kind of blurry. But you mentioned that the lack of respect that you see for the parents here in the United States of America. You
oh yeah,
you address that. Can you address that here now? I mean, how is it different in the way you grew up?
let me tell you the lack of respect here. For if I'll be specific, how the ladies disrespect their men, and then how it stems from how they grow up, like how they are raised as children, knowing, like, showing them like mommy's word is final. Like, in my opinion, my father's word was final. Okay, go change that dress, or you're not coming with me. Not non-negotiable. You're non-negotiable. You don't ask why. You do not negotiate with your father. So I grew up knowing my father's word is final, even though I saw him for a very limited time because he died when I was 9. So when my mom took over the authority, my mom's word was final, and she will tell you like one day. She doesn't explain herself. You don't ask why. And then when you grow up, you feel like your mom is saved you a whole bunch, and then they beat us. They beat us every, like, my mom used to collect your offenses or your crimes, like 4 of them, and she will give you a good beating. You will never. So I had a tendency of, if she promised to beat me up, I will flee. I ran to my grandma's house. My grandma was loving, and she would hide us. When she gave me a good beating and threatened to, hey, she would threaten you, and then say it is not safe in the community for a girl your age to be running around, even though we know each other. But that's not what I want you to do, because I promised, or I threatened, I want you to do right. Okay, so those things, the parenting of, like, beat you up or punish you really hard, or it's not the same parenting here. So even when you feel like, oh, my mom abused me, this, okay, I'm sorry to talk like that. I'm sorry, but how we are raised, if you narrate it to an American, they think we were abused. It looks like abuse. They don't call it disciplining, but it it saved us a whole lot, because I went to the city by myself. I survived because of how my mom raised me.
You know, that's interesting. We just said goodbye to my mother. And I remember years ago when I was a child, I got into a fight with a couple of white kids. And I came home, I had a couple of bruises and whatnot, cuts. And I called them a bad name, and she smacked me. And then I said, "Why'd you hit me?" She said, I went on, I said, she said, "You don't use that word in front of me." And
Oh,
so I used another one, and she smacked me again. She said, because my mother raised 7 kids by herself. And, yeah, we got spanking. I mean, how do you raise 7 kids by yourself
by
with no,
yourself. And the
Well,
way my mom preserved me, like if I ever wore anything that would expose my chest here or my legs or tight showing my hips, she would simply like break your ego. She would say like, where are you taking those things you call legs? You think you have beautiful legs? So so now you have breasts, now you're going to be exposing your chest everywhere. Like, and then she said, ugly people show too much because you have to show other parts of your body to get validations from people out there. So if you're
so you
beautiful,
weren't raised that way.
yeah. So she called people who expose too much, she calls them ugly. So
That's
then, and she called me beautiful because the more you cover up is the more beautiful you are. So most people out there, Africans, that's why we cover up more. So it's sign of class, it's a sign of sexy and beauty, like a princess. That's how we feel. It's not like, this one, they are so primitive, they're always covered up. It's the opposite in my head. To me, this is sexy.
that's. I think it's quite beautiful because here, and I've had this conversation many times, uh,
Mhm.
in America or in a lot of Western cultures, their beauty is based on their their sexuality, and that's a big. I have a big problem with that. And you were not raised. That was not something that was accepted.
At all, because also how marriage or relationship, there's no relationship or dating, this is my boyfriend, nothing like that. You simply cover up. They know you because communities know each other, that hey, there is a grown woman in so family that I would like, this is such a great family, I would like to marry from their family. So they always, the parents, when you're ready, the parents meet up and marry you off. Of course, it's not the same anymore today. It is still happening, but not the same, because I mean, I'm an old woman, I saw that happening. Now I am single with different teaching and in a wrong era, whereby in my head I'm supposed to stay home, cover up, be a good girl, and wait for my man to come for me and talk to my father and take me home to marry me. But until I'm like, I'm still, I'm still single, no one is coming. So now I have to change that and then dress sexy, show up more skin, go out there and display myself. It doesn't sit well for me. And then it is so hard for an African woman these days to actually get a meaningful relationship because we are viewed as an not so cool, not up to standard. They don't know what goes into our head. For us, this is classy. This is standard, high class woman. Can't you see?
And yet you don't get that. You don't get that.
Okay. Huh?
Okay, so moving on with that
Yeah. Yeah.
situation, what is your perception of the American people now that you've been here for 7 years? And in particularly, I'm part of the Black community, I guess. Although I resist that identification because I'm part of the world community in my mind. I can't condense it down to the color of my skin. I just can't do that. But in America, do you see a disadvantage to that way of thinking, or do you think that the emotion behind all of it? I mean, how do you see Black America now that you've been here for 7 years?
Well, I feel like they are many years ahead of us. So they are just ahead of us. I mean, look, we are in the world where the the technology, they have been exposed for 100 years plus, exposed to things that we are just seeing for the first time, 7 years. And you have been watching TV, you have been watching films, music videos, that things that I just started watching when I'm 25, when I the things you saw growing up as a baby, and it is normal. You take vacations and then wear swimsuits and then you go all do those things, they are normal, and I'm seeing them for the very first time age 26, 27. So what do you expect? I think they are normal. They are normal. There are things that can be reversed, I think, can be changed to have some level of decency, but also there are things that you cannot take away from them because that's how the exposure has given them. Like the level of exposure they have is on that level. You cannot take them back to Africa. You can. I don't
So,
know if I'm answering it correctly.
well, let me ask you this question: do you see
Yeah.
America as a racist nation?
Yes, it is, and there is a lot of discrimination, of course. There is a lot of discrimination, but the discrimination stems from who is discriminating you at the particular time. So for the people who have treated me like I don't belong, they are actually non-white people. Non-white people, like in the areas whereby they would discriminate you just because they don't know how to talk to you. You didn't go to the same school. You did not experience. You don't play the same games. You they have their standard of beauty, and maybe you don't qualify. Your face does not qualify to those standards of beauty, like people who are called beautiful. So, and to me, where I grew up from, my mom comes from a tribe whereby many years ago they migrated from Rwanda. They came to Uganda because of civil wars, and then they were so pretty. Her tribe, the Batusi from Rwanda, they are so beautiful. Whatever beauty is, based on the beauty standards today, the nose, the face shape, and whatever color, the shape of your body, skin. But they were so poor that they came looking for jobs just to cultivate the lands and take care of the cows because they loved cows. So now they were perceived as people who just poor. The same way here in America, they see us in Africa, they see us poor people looking for help. Okay?
That's
Even when you're hundreds, like many miles by far, living a better life in America, the poorest American would, the minute they hear you coming from Africa, they will turn around, they want to feed you, this, or they want to give you clothes, they want to offer you things. And you have to prove yourself so much. No, I am highly educated, I have money, I'm living the best life in here. Don't worry, you don't need to help me. So my mom, she comes from a tribe that was so undermined, and also the men loved those women so much, but they were so ashamed of showing it in public that I'm in love with the Munyarwanda Mtusi, because they were seen as low class workers. Okay, but again they had children with them, and children would come out to show like this child is with you, you had her with the Munyarwanda. So
so
we
that
were, I was not Munyarwanda enough, I was not Muganda enough. I was just in the middle.
so
Okay?
I mean, that was you dealt with a different kind of racism.
Yes. And in Uganda, we deal with tribalism and classism. Who was your father? Was your father rich? Had many cows and many wives and all types of prestigious things. So then that will determine how they will treat you. Then coming here in America is another form of segregation, it's racism. It is human nature. Like to me, it does not get to my nerve unless if you get physical with me or you touch me or you disturb my peace. But you saying things to me, that's why many Africans survive here perfectly, because they have dealt with these things back home. And then I will take any job, the the worst job, because I close my ears and go do the job. I take the lowest wages because I know my family is going to depend on it. But then it makes us somehow disliked from by our fellow black people here, because maybe for them they know their worth. Okay,
You're saying that the African person knows their worth.
we know our worth, but we are willing to go down low for what we want and build from scratch. Okay,
To
but
work hard.
to work, yes, from the scratch, like an average person. I know some gentleman who is in his 60s. He's wealthy back home, extremely wealthy. But I was training him here because he fled for fear of his life, politics. Okay, but I was training him to be CNA doing regular job, but he's wealthy. He has maybe $1 billion or $1 million house, mansion.
And you're teaching him how to be a CNA.
A CNA just for survival. They are willing to do that. And a regular American would never do that if they are up to that level. I assume, I suppose, but I've seen it happen on the smallest discomfort. They would quit their jobs. Smallest discomfort, they will quit on their relationship. Smallest misunderstanding, they will break up with the
Are
boyfriend.
we talking about Americans, or are we talking about the African American?
The
Good bless.
my observation with the African American, or the level of tolerance and patience we are at, the Africans, as opposed to in relation with our sisters here in African Americans here.
So what you're saying to me, if I get this right, because I've heard this before, and please correct me, it's harder to get along with the African American because of the perception they have of you as opposed to getting to know you.
Exactly.
Okay. So their perception is that somehow you're less than and or not part of them. And yet you're an African.
Exactly. So even because you're willing to be patient, then they label you as low self-value. Then because you're willing to work things out with your boyfriend, then you have attachment issues. They will label everything to a behavior or something. Yeah, then you start questioning yourself, and then you start adjusting slowly. So it's the American style. Then before you know it, you say, I can't take that anymore. You start behaving like that. I can't take that anymore. Or you don't give people chances, or you don't give life chances. But Africans give like insane chances to things, but many in the end they work out. Right?
I mentioned that I've asked this question many, many times, and I'm not here to disparage Black people in America. That's not what I'm trying to do. What I'm trying to do is to say the African who is from Africa, not 400 years ago or 200 years ago, but 50 minutes ago, doesn't recognize the African American, but you recognize them as Americans because culturally they're not really connected to the way you grew up. Well, that just makes sense. That's simple because they didn't grow up in Uganda. They didn't grow up in Kenya. They didn't grow up in Nairobi. They grew up in America. And I had a pastor once say to me, several years ago from Kenya, he said, and he was pretty indignant about it, but he said to me, the poorest African American in America is wealthy compared to many in Africa.
Yeah.
Would you agree with that statement?
I would agree. I meet a lot of homeless people here. They're struggling, but they are rocking in Nike, the latest Nike in store, which is also because they have access to free things here. In Africa, you don't have. Okay, unless you go back to work to your father's land and go work the land and start there. But an average poor American has access to $100 to $200, $300, which is equivalent to 1,000,000 Uganda shillings. And many people, that's the average. That's a good salary for many people, to bankers. Okay, people working in banks. So
I wanted to switch. I want to talk about that for a minute because you come to this country and you make a different kind of wage. What's a typical wage in Uganda for a Black woman of your age? I mean, I hope you don't mind me sharing that, but you're not 25-year-old woman. In fact, I was shocked when you told me how old you really were. And I won't elaborate on that. But what's the difference between a salary here and a salary in Uganda?
Well, based on the standards of living, uh, let's say, hmm, I don't know how to explain that, but $300 is equivalent to a million Uganda shillings. And a million Uganda shillings is what a banker, I would say, is one of the prestigious jobs there. A banker makes. And then a good apartment, average apartment there would be like 300,000. Okay. So I take care of my family and they are happy. They live a good life with just $500 a month. And I have a household of 11 people. I have a big house and children. So, and for just $500, they go play, they eat whatever they want. They go to games. Of course, Uganda is getting more civilized the same way activities up out here. Okay, and I take over 8 children to school with just $700 and
So,
the best school.
and then you have to pay for your life here.
And I take care of my bills here and also take good care of myself. And also support a few people here and there who will slide in my text and say, "Hey sister, please, this and that. I'm failing here. Would you push me a little bit? Hey sister, hey cousin, hey niece." Of course so I would say maybe a financial analyst would give you a good answer in the correct language, but I would say that it depends on the standard of living here and there and how we get paid. um I mean, I can feed a whole family with $30. $30 can feed a whole family for a week, and they in the city.
I
Mm.
want to I want to backtrack because you mentioned people here are real sensitive and very emotional
Okay.
and easily offended. I mean,
Yes.
is that across the board in
Mhm.
America? It doesn't matter what race. Do you see that as just kind of the way Americans behave?
Yes, because they have been taught about they have the awareness, the awareness of their feelings from childhood. Oh, are you sad? Or did he offend you? So how they talk to the children, and from early age they have emotional awareness and the names attached to all the emotions. Oh, you're sad, you're depressed, you're anxious, you're this, you're that. So then, and then they are told that don't let nobody make you don't make nobody make you unhappy, don't let nobody, stand up for yourself. So, but we need to strike a balance of when not everything or any discomfort you should dismiss people or cut them off. The minute I feel like the energy or whatever it is, I cut you off. Then you end up cutting off people who would be very important or would grow with you and get to know each other and then make very strong friendships. I still have friendships of 20 years. We went to school together. Don't we offend each other? Or we lie to each other? We go against each other's wills, but we are still together because we are humans. So, and then I feel, yes, they are. That's true. That
Well,
is true.
when I met you,
Mm,
I could see that you were intelligent. You were, and I don't even want to say that.
thank you.
I just saw someone who was not afraid. Like you mentioned yourself, because of your upbringing, you had no problem coming here. You know, when I moved from New York to the Pacific Northwest, I was 17 years old.
Oh
I
wow,
had no fear of
nice.
coming here. Then when I got here, I thought, oh my God, these people are so different than
Mm.
where I grew up. And I find that in different places in the United States of America. And I don't have very much experience in the South, but I
Yeah.
find that culturally, there's differences across the nation with how people respond. But the one thing that I have realized in the last 25 years is people have become more emotional and closed off.
Yes.
People don't speak to each other. They live in the same building or they say in the same neighborhood for 10 years. They don't know each other. They don't
Yeah.
speak to each other. And it wasn't that way when I grew up, and I grew up in upstate New York, but
Mm.
we knew everybody, and we knew everybody in the neighborhood. And I was in a mixed neighborhood. It eventually became all black, but we all knew everybody. And that's something I don't see anywhere in the United States anymore.
You know why? You know why? Because they have that sense of safety. Like they don't need you in case they have any problem. They have their insurance in place. They have their smartphone. They will call 911 in case they need any type of rescue mission. They don't need you. But if you have to depend on your neighbor for help in case anything happens to you, then you have no choice but to reconcile with your neighbor or get to know them. Okay,
And
but
that's
here I feel the sense of knowing my neighbors. I usually think about going and knocking and introduce myself, and I'm like, this level of stranger danger in America, what if they shoot me in the face? So they feel they don't need you here. That's where civilization can take us, or modern day time. You have everything to your disposal. Like if you need anything, you can really live by yourself. The only thing you will miss out on maybe social life. Even
that's
when you go out to dance in restaurants, people will not give you their eyes because they don't want to start a relationship or a conversation or say hi. But because for some reason they are the America is teaching you to live by yourself,
mm.
and they make sure you can live by yourself and be safe, and of course, yeah, you don't need
but,
anybody's security.
but
Okay.
those experiences for you in the last 7 years have been in the cities because you haven't really lived in the countries or the farmland in the United
Mm.
States of America. So your observation is based on the city life. Would that be a
here,
true statement?
here in America,
Yes.
I've lived in the countryside of America. I've worked there before. I've gone to upstate New York for 4 months. I
Where?
even in Albany.
Oh, okay, Albany. I'm from New York, so I know. So you
So
okay? But do you?
even the rural America is not up to what I'm saying. Where I grew up from, it's accessible. Fire truck can reach there, and 911 can go there. Sheriff will access there. They have running water. They have the grocery. They have the plazas close to them. They can access whatever they want. They have schools there. They don't have to rely to the neighbor. Say, hey, if I'm not a good neighbor, we will not share a ride to take my children to school, or I will not be asking favors. Will you come back with my daughter, please? Because maybe your neighbor has a car and you don't. So
Well,
you have no choice but to be a good person to a good people to each other. Like you to reconcile whatever differences you have. You have no choice but to reconcile and work together as community because you depend on each other. Here, you nobody depends on each other on anybody.
so that's very true, and
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's very sad. Actually, I actually think it was because I grew up. My mother's family, they're all gone now, but
Uh,
I grew up with them always around. Her brothers and sisters, they were always there. We knew them all, and if you needed anything, I think in a lot of communities that might still be true. We
hmm.
just don't see it as much as I did growing up, where the family. I knew she had 14. There were 14 kids in her family.
Oh,
and I
wow.
all my whole life.
Nice.
And so that we were a little different.
Hmm.
And the same was true of my father's family. So I don't know. I can't speak to the whole of America, but I know that growing up in our black community, it was close knit.
Yes.
But we also had a lot of fathers in our we had fathers. A
Yes.
lot of the communities don't have fathers in the
Yes.
United States of America, which is a great big problem. You
Right.
mentioned in the last 15 minutes of our time together, you mentioned that your passion is to train children or teach children, or maybe you could correct me on that. What did you tell me about that? You wanted to do what with children, or you wanted to tell stories?
Oh, yes. Telling stories is just tell stories about Africa, and maybe it helps to remove this fear of just to even take a trip to Africa. People feel like, oh, think that the minute you enter Africa, bacteria are going to come and then you get sick, or the lions are going to come and attack you, or they will cut off your head, or they will kidnap you on a ransom, something like that. So, and then we get asked a lot. At least every 6 out of 10 Africans, they ask, when did you come to America? 6, 5, say 7 years ago. Oh wow, how did you learn English? So so okay, all those questions. So when they take interest in learning about Africa, or somebody tells them these stories, maybe they will feel like they'll fall in love with Africa, and the more you feel this sense of belonging, like it's not a shame to be coming from Africa, or to associate yourself with Africa. It's not just about disease, poverty, and bad politics or civil war. No, Africa has so much to offer. Like that is just
See,
it,
that's kind of my problem.
yeah.
When I hear the word African American here in the United States, I've never been to Africa, but I've spoken to so many African people, white and black. Um, and and the the concept of being an African American and not know anything about Africa, to me, is there's something missing there. It's
Yes.
like if you call yourself an African American, or somehow the color of your skin makes you separate, whether it be from years of racism and
Right.
abuse, all those different things. I can appreciate those things. I've lived through some of that stuff. I understand that stuff. However, the country's not trading slaves, and there's not, none of those things are going on in America in the way that it's perceived 200 years ago.
Right.
I mean, I can think of black judges and politicians and professors and sports athletes, are just average people that have done very well in this nation.
Right.
So when we say that America is a racist nation, if that were true to the point to where you were oppressed and put down and treated poorly, we wouldn't have any of those things to talk about. And we're not in that place anymore. So you come to America in the final 12 minutes of our time together. You come to America. What did you think? And do you like it here? Two questions.
Yes, I love it here. I love it here, but I mean, home is home. I miss home. And so, for the things that I would love to improve in Africa, if they get improved right now without taking the culture, I would happily return. Or if God blesses me and I get a breakthrough and I get so much money, okay, I can still return to Africa and maybe help in the community, because I know how to live in those communities. I know just to improve schools, improve the healthcare, bring more health services or centers close to the people, not just one big hospital miles away from people, or everyone, there's congestion. So improve the health centers that are close to people, put medicine there, teach the mothers parenting, proper parenting skills, or eliminate a few things that are literally like a brain damaging, and then we still believe it is disciplining. And improve the road system infrastructure, and then let the people be. Okay, let the children run around with no shoes, with their butts out. It doesn't mean they don't have any shoes or they don't have clothes. They just choose to. That's what we know. I had a lot of shoes, but I ran around without shoes all the time. So, to me, in my opinion, there are things that I would edit from African settings, and then, of course, adapt to American things. America has a lot of things, beautiful, nice things if we adopted them. Okay? If we adopted them, of course, they are way ahead of us. And emotional intelligence, and learning about your feelings, and then self control. No. Learn about what I've learned so far in my life. Okay, listen to my body. Learn to talk. Not late. Don't, okay, improve the things that I was taught as a woman that are limiting me, my success, because now, based on the new where the life is, I have to go out there and win for myself. But before, like, I had to deal with a lot of things they taught me as a woman that are impossible. I deal with a lot of mindset. So if we can empower Africans to improve those things in many areas, and then catch up, and then also America can adapt to the culture, and then also have that sense of belonging, and then incorporate it with the modern culture of free dressing, free speech, free whatever, and then eliminate maybe uh, okay, learn more patience, give people more chances, don't cut off people just from one mistake. Oh, so there is so much to learn. We adapt, and then they can adopt without judging from just one interaction. It's hard. Well, so if to find people who are like friends and they're Africans with African Americans, maybe they went to school together and they live together. They have no choice but to see each other every day. They have to go to school together, so they had no choice but to give each other second chances until they are bonded together. No, those are best friends. It's rare. But me coming to your party, meet someone there, and then we make a very good friend out of that. It's rare. It's hard because I feel like African Americans don't give us chances to learn about us. And, oh, why do you behave that way? Why are you too slow? Why don't you respond to questions? Why they okay, you go, you I don't understand. Cut. Oh, they cut us too early before they get to know us. And also maybe we do the same to them before we get to know them.
Perhaps.
Yeah.
I don't know. I've met some wonderful African people, and they all have the same mindset. They look at the African American in America and they go, "You don't know what you have that we don't even have concepts for
Yeah.
our country." And they all say the same thing. Now, listen, we've got 7 minutes left, and
Okay.
I'd be curious to hear one of your stories about Africa. Do you have one you'd like to share?
Okay. So so would you throw me a topic so I can like bring you straight to the story? Oh my goodness, of God.
Well, let's put it this way. I'll make it a little easier.
Yes, make it a little easier.
When you see um, rioting in the streets of America, how is it different than rioting in Uganda in the cities?
Oh, here the rioting here is more civilized. Is more. I don't know if I'm using that word correctly. This it's more it's more of like march to what most riots I've seen here. Let's write banners, walk, march, and chant the words. So, and unless if it is outrage like what happened with uh, the George Floyd, it's rare to see such riots going that far. But many many times or almost all the time when there is a riot in Uganda, it's an opportunity for the less advantaged to to break into restaurants and have food. Okay, and they are not even up to like the cause, or but it's an opportunity to break into a shop and get a shoe, or just to go out there because there's so much unemployment with the youth, and almost 78% of the population is young people under 45 and below, young people, educated, unemployment. So it is more violent every single day because people are outraged, they don't have jobs, they don't have food, some people in the city. So there is so many idle people who will join the riot and for the wrong reasons and end up making it so bad.
A
As
lot
of
of killing. They do a
as,
lot more killing there.
yes,
Say, I mean, a riot over there means people are going to die.
yes, because the government knows if they don't shoot rubber bullets there, sometimes live bullets or tear gas, they won't go. You don't know what happens to a person who is like so tired and fed up of the situation, like because they don't have food, they don't know where to stay, they don't know what next. So they would jump on any opportunity that sounds like this is going to help me, or this person is here advocating for me. The politicians know what to say to spark that anger in people, and they
We
would
have, we
okay.
have that same thing here. I mean, the politicians here snap their fingers and people run out in the streets and start rioting. The problem is we burn down our community for
Mm,
things that it's kind of the same thing what you're saying. It's that we don't have headless people and people with no arms and all kinds of murder and stuff like that in the streets, but it's the same kind of thing. It's almost like a programming, in my opinion. They
yeah.
program the people to go riot. It's the same thing. It's just a lot more bloodier in Uganda.
Yes,
The
it's a lot
history.
more bloody in Uganda. But so, yeah, Uganda and America, the only difference is America is advanced for many, many years, and Africa is still struggling so much, struggling with just as little as like no employment or health care, mothers still giving birth. So those things are still there, but it's not like we are not even aware of what's going on as people think here. When you come here, they look at you like maybe you're blank, you don't even know how to take care of your skin or brush your teeth, or where did you learn to wear high heels from? I just didn't have them. But when they see you paint your nails, oh, so they look at you like you're not supposed to be knowing nothing. You're learning it from America. No, that's not the case. People, they
Uh, we got 2 minutes left. I'll give you the final word. What would you like to say?
I would like to say that I am not biased. I love America. I'm learning so much here. The more I learn, it has helped me so much improve the lives of my people, the people I care about, and I've learned a few things. I've come to terms like, okay, self value, self love, all those things. Of course, where I grew up from, it takes away so much like that, and then sometimes we mix it with culture. But if you have the culture and then you love yourself, you learn how to balance those things. Okay, and I love America for the opportunity to come here and employ me. Like no one has ever, like I asked 3 jobs and they give them all of them to me. I get all of the 3 jobs, and then yeah, if I have a chance to bring all my family here, I would happily bring them here, make them American citizens, and then we make so much money and go back, build the communities, and go back and live in the communities and continue to live how the best way how we know how. But we are not here to change you people. We know you. You have been advanced for so long. Whatever behaviors we just struggling to learn to live with each other. We struggle, of course, change. We
So,
struggle.
so for
But
you, it would be to take advantage of what America has to offer, and it has benefited you.
so much, and it continues to benefit me as long as you're willing to go out there and work and search for opportunities. The doors keep opening themselves like crazy, and the more than what you can even take. I'm going back to school. The financial literacy program is helping me, like, the more, if I educate, there's no way I can go out there, educate 10 people, and at least four people will buy from me the products, and I make a significant amount of money, and I live a good life. I have a good car, I live in a good house.
Well,
The-
Ruth, I want to thank you for taking the time to do this. I might ask you to do this again. I hope, would you, as I start doing this more and more, I'm kind of naming this little thing that I'm doing now. Simply, let's talk about you. And you've done that tonight. And I really appreciate it. I appreciate you being willing to come on and share. And maybe we could do this again. Now, this whole thing is going to be recorded. So it'll be posted on my website, and I'll make sure that you get all this information. And I know we were live on Facebook because I got a few comments here. Thanks, Brady. I appreciate it. And maybe we can do this again sometime, okay?
yes, I'll be excited to do it again. Thank you so much.
You're on Facebook. You don't have a website though, right?
No, I don't have a website.
You do a lot of TikTok stuff. I don't do TikTok.
It's okay.
So people can find you. Spell your last name.
Nabiddo. Nabiddo.
Yes. Okay.
My name is Ruth
Thank
Nabiddo.
you so much. I really appreciate it. And
Thank
hope
you.
you have a very good evening, okay?
Yes.
And I have to go back to that place where I met you at tomorrow.
Oh, you're going there, Miss Esther. Okay.
I hope my wife says, nice meeting you, Ruth. Thank you.
Nice meeting you too, ma'am. Thank you
I
so
have to go
much.
back there tomorrow because they have problems in all of those apartments.
Oh, I hope you help them. I hope you fix all of them and they are happy.
I don't want to go back there. Thank you again. I enjoyed our time together.
Bye-bye. Enjoy.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. How do I get off here?